let's start talking about BRICS since we're there anyway.
Absolutely, totally.
So I know you've been following this.
Absolutely.
And as you know, a couple days ago, the summit ended. But before we go into the takeaways and what it all meant, can you tell me what BRICS is?
Well, BRICS is a country union, and there's a group of countries that have come together to form a bloc, kind of like the euro, right? The European Union, can they peg a currency? Probably not. No pegs have ever lasted. And in fact, we're now witnessing the breakdown of the European peg. That's another story for another day. But it is to counter the dollar's dominance in the world. The BRICS term was first coined, I think, back in 2002, and that part is all good. It was more formalized in 2010 with South Africa. And then it's kind of been closed, but now more and more countries are more interested because of what they witnessed with the U.S. locking Russia out of the system, out of the global financial system, the SWIFT system. But what's been really interesting, and I think probably pretty disheartening for the U.S., is Russia's continued its growth. Right? So just shutting them out of that system, it kind of forced them to create the new system more urgently. But it's the ability to trade within their local currencies with each other, cross borders. That's what they're working on.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they came to that logical conclusion, right? If they were going to be held back from trading and from doing other transactions, they were, like you said, they were going to have to figure out a different way to do things. And so that's what they're doing. And that takes me to the next question. You answered that beautifully as to the why they're doing it, right? One of the things that Putin came out and said was the dollar is being weaponized. And we need to start thinking about how to get away from the dollar so that it can't be used against us. And they're basically trying to take back some of that power. And the interesting thing that I thought from the summit was so many people showed up, right, despite the conflicts that have been going on.
Absolutely.
And it's, that's its own situation, but it also kind of shows you that even as a country, they're not able to do this on their own, right? They need to have that community.
Exactly. That is such a good point. We do. And you're referring to de-dollarization, which is a transfer of power, because no country, the US dollar has been the world reserve currency since the 40s. No country has ever maintained that power because ultimately they end up abusing it. This is also one of the reasons why, as the de-dollarization continues and as that loss of status continues, it's about the speed, right? And how noticeable it's going to be for us here that live in the U.S., because there's no doubt in my mind but that we will have the greatest shift in standard of living as this whole trend evolves.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what they're saying, right? It's a changing world order, a changing financial system that's coming. And whether that's in the near term or the long term, it is something to be mindful of.
I wouldn't say the long term. And the reason why I say that is, number one, I came into this industry in 2002 after I had gotten the technical signals that we were at the end. So, no currency lives forever either. It shifts. They just try and keep the name so you don't realize that anything has changed. But yes, this power shift actually started a long time ago. And it was already 2000 when we were not selling enough of our government bonds in the U.S., the treasuries, so that the Federal Reserve was buying that back. Now, that's not a good thing. That's what a third world country does. And so we kept it very quiet until 2009. Right. And then it became a great thing to do. No, it's not a good thing to do. That's a central bank monetizing the debt of the current government, whether it's in the U.S. or it's everywhere else in the world now. They're all doing it.
Right. And that's a really good point, because I do think that here in the U.S., we do tend to kind of think like, oh, that won't happen. That's not going to happen anytime soon.
Right.
The threat seems so far away. So that's a really good point, that a lot of the times we underestimate those things.
We don't, what we're really asking people to do is have a paradigm shift. Because here's my very favorite question. How many times can you be lied to when you do not know the truth?
Right.
Right? So we've been trained away from sound money because what sound money really does is it puts the power in the public. And you made a statement earlier about these countries taking their power back. Well, let's get more granular than that. How about if the public, not just in those countries, but in every country in the world, including the US, what if we took our power back?
Right.
Because we've given it away. And I think that we've all experienced at one time or another to our detriment that we don't have that power.
Absolutely.
People say, what can I do?
Absolutely.
I'm one person.
Right.
But if we all come together, we are very powerful. That's the sound money movement. That's the point of gold and silver in your possession.
Right. Absolutely. Which brings me to my next point, which that is one of the things that these BRICS countries have been doing. They've been buying gold at outrageous, like never before seen pace. And they're actually saying that is one of the drivers of the rallies that we keep seeing in the gold market. So they are preparing for this.
Yes, 100%. They're preparing for de-dollarization because, when you look at life cycles like anything else, they've got repeatable patterns. So once you learn how to recognize those patterns, then it's easier to know where we are in this trend cycle. And so what always happens 100% of the time is that the public loses confidence in the currency with rapid inflation, with hyperinflation, right? That's really what does it and gets rid of that confidence in the system.
Right.
And when they have to regain that confidence, what do they use? Gold.
Right.
Because gold is the primary currency metal. So yes, they're accumulating more gold than they ever have since we've been tracking that, because they are preparing for this currency regime shift.
So that's one thing that they're doing to prepare, right? They're buying gold. But what are some of the other things through the summit that we learned? Like, what are some of the advances that they've made in their goals to get away from the dollar?
Well, you've been following this pretty closely yourself. Now, everybody's waiting for this big announcement on the unit, right? Which, by the way, I want to be absolutely clear because somebody brought this to my attention that it seems like there are others that are using backing and pegging interchangeably, but let us not make any quips about this. If a currency is backed, it must be convertible into that gold. If it, at whatever the percentage is, that's not the relevant part of it. But also the gold needs to be appropriately priced for its true fundamental value, which is what will happen during the hyperinflationary blow-off, so we can go into this new system. So they didn't really bring up the unit, but they did have a new symbolic currency with the key members' flags, etc. What did you get out of that?
Yeah, so one thing that I thought was ironic about the summit was that they talked a lot about de-dollarization. But at the end of the day, when they were in, and you can go on the website and see that they are talking about, okay, how are you going to be able to exchange your money here and exchange currency and pay for things? Well, they said, bring your dollars and bring your euros, which I thought was a bit ironic given that they're trying to get away from that. So I think to me that was an indication that they are still a ways from that. But while they are, they have a while to go to get to where they want to get to, I still think, to your point, Lynette, it's not something that should be underestimated.
Oh, no. Because I think what is also happening in the BRICS, but this is less visible, is they are building the plumbing
Yes.
for the new digital financial system.
Right. We should be thinking about some of the things that we can't see, right? That there's maybe, like
Right.
you said, they're saying one thing, but maybe they're doing another thing.
Absolutely.
And so we shouldn't underestimate their power and what they're able to accomplish. But the other thing that you said that I really liked was, the debt, that like the fiscal responsibility within governments, because I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and they talked about a report that just came out where they were saying that our debt, the payments, our debt repayments are now one of the biggest line items, more than, I think it was like, healthcare and all, think of all the budgets that we have, and paying back debt is what we're spending the most money on.
But did they say, because I never hear them really say this next piece, the reason why that line item has gotten so big is because we've been compounding the interest on that debt. It's not just the debt.
Right.
Go into the Fred and take a look at the surplus or deficits. Just
Right.
put that in the search bar and you'll see that maybe we're at 2 trillion. I don't know quite where we are in deficits right now, but we're servicing 35, 36 trillion.
Right.
So they're spending more money. Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Than they take in, than the income from your taxes, my
Right.
taxes,
Right.
all of that. But we're also compounding interest. If you have a credit card and you are making the minimum payment and not paying all of the interest, forget any of the principal, are you ever getting out of debt?
No.
No. So they have to reset that debt. That's why we
Absolutely.
have to go into hyperinflation.
Yeah, I mean, and I always, I always like to say, you hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And with all these geopolitical tensions,
Oh my God,
with
yeah.
our skyrocketing debt, I think that's why we're seeing the price of gold just continue to go up.
Absolutely.
So with that in mind, and thinking about the summit, we talked a little bit about the debt. What are some of the things that people can be doing to prepare? These are very high level issues, right, that we're not always thinking about on a day-to-day basis. But what are some of the actionable items that we can take away from the things that we're seeing happening in the world?
Yeah, we have to be as independent and self-sufficient as we possibly can be. So that's the mantra: food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. But we don't have the luxury of the time. Right? People always think you have all the time in the world, and as long as things are working the way
Right.
we're used to them working, okay.
Right.
But then think about what happened in 2020
Right.
with the cerveza disease. I mean, boom, all of a sudden, everything was shut down.
Yes. That is
So-
such an excellent point, because you don't know when it's going to happen, and
You
that's
don't.
the biggest risk, is you don't know when it's going to happen.
Right.
So it's a lot better, and that goes with everything. What is the saying about planting a tree? The best time to plant a tree is
5 years ago.
5 years ago, but if you didn't do it then, do it now.
Exactly. Monica, this has been great, and I love all of the data and the information that you bring in and your questions. I think the audience and our viewers can glean so much from this, and I'm really looking forward to our trip in Australia. We're going in just a little while here, so that is really exciting.
Absolutely. And I love these conversations that we have together, and I hope that it's helpful to the audience in terms of helping them understand what is happening. And if they're not reading the news, they can always come here to
Exactly.
listen to these conversations and hear about what our thoughts are on what that's impacting, and then how that impacts them, and how they can use the
Exactly.
information to
So
make.
how do you think they can use this information?
Yeah, I think for me, it's always about preparation with a lot of geopolitical tensions, with inflation, and so many other challenges that we're seeing globally. It's always really important to prepare. And one of the best ways to do that is to do that financially. Because
Yes.
with all of these challenges come the peaks and the valleys, right? And so you want to make
Absolutely.
sure that you're prepared for those valleys when they come. And one really good way to do that is through gold, right? Because that is one of the best ways to hedge against inflation.
Well, and to maintain your freedom,
Right.
right? You need to have sound money in your portfolio, and that's why we have
Absolutely.
our Zang, the sound money strategy at Zang Enterprises, and it's built in layers.
Yes.
So no matter where you are in this trend cycle as it unfolds, you'll have the right tools for the job.
Absolutely.
So they can just scan that QR code, click the link, or give us a call at 833-GLD-ZANG and set up your time to talk to a strategy specialist and get your whole strategy in place.
Absolutely.
I know, together we can really make a difference, and I'm really glad that you've joined us. I mean, I seriously, I'm very glad that you're here.
So am I. I really do love these conversations there, and I love doing all the research for it.
Awesome,
And I have so much fun
awesome.
with it.
Yeah, I mean, she's a great addition to the team. And feel free to send in questions for Monica as
Yes,
well.
absolutely. I would love to hear what some of you are thinking and answer any of your questions.
Perfect. So until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.